Hello and good afternoon. This is Tommy Valentine with Historic Athens. Thank you so much for tuning in for this uh, afternoon's episode of This Moment in History, COVID-19 in Athens, Georgia. Today is episode 27 of our broadcast. It's one of what we plan to have as 55 episodes for this series. At the conclusion of the series, all 55 interviews, including today, will be packaged and delivered as a digital archive to our local libraries and research institutions. This has been made possible by the generous donation of several local organizations. This week's broadcast is brought to you in part by the Athens Area Chamber of Commerce. And so we really appreciate the Athens Area Chamber of Commerce for stepping up and letting us deliver this program. If this is your first time tuning in, we want you to know that this is not just a program for you to watch, it's also something you can participate in. So as long as we are still live, you have the ability to become part of this historic record. All you need to do is make a comment below this video. You can add a question, word of feedback, maybe a word of encouragement, whatever you find appropriate. Just comment right below this video as we're going, and I can bring it up on screen and we can address it on air live. With that said, one last note, as I mentioned, this is episode 27. If you wish to watch the first 26 episodes or just see who we've had on in the past, you can go to the video section of this Facebook page and see our digital archive already available. You'll see we've talked to restaurant owners, business owners, elected officials, community leaders, all kinds of people that have an impact on how Athens is run. And we're examining, documenting, exploring how COVID's having an impact on their work. With that out of the way, it's my pleasure to go ahead and welcome our guest onto the program. So today's guest is David Lynn of the Athens Downtown Development Authority. In a moment, I'll have David introduce himself, but what you should know is that David has served this community in a variety of different ways. Like some of the people we've talked to in the past, his commitment to our city has expressed itself through a variety of roles. And so we're interested in talking about who David is, what his work is today, and then getting into how COVID-19 has affected that work and the organizations that he works with through the Athens Downtown Development Authority. So if you'll forgive me here just one moment, this is a DIY broadcast, so I do not have a control room to make the switch. So you're going to see me clicking a few things, but we'll go ahead and get David onto the stream with us here. So bear with me one moment. All right. Okay, David, of course, this would be the exact moment that the giant train would decide to go by my house, but that's the advantage of living in a historic neighborhood.
Part of the program, yeah.
That's right. Let's really document it. So, David, thank you so much for coming to the program. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fine, and thanks for having me.
Of course. Well, it's our pleasure to have you on. David, as I mentioned, you've served our community in a variety of different roles. It's likely that there are audience members tuned in right now that know you through some of those roles, but it's also very likely that there might be someone watching right now or maybe watching in the future that hasn't had the chance to meet you. So can you take a few minutes to introduce yourself, to talk about your relationship with Athens, and talk about the work you do today?
Sure. My name is David Lynn. I'm the planning director for the Athens Downtown Development Authority. And as Tommy mentioned, I've been around for a little while, and I've done quite a few things here in Athens, primarily in the public sector. I came to Athens, like most of y'all, as a young University of Georgia student many years ago, and pretty much fell in love with Athens at that time in the early 80s and decided this was going to be my home. I have, like I said, been a university student here. I've worked in various roles with the Athens Clarke County, primarily in their planning department. I've been with the University of Georgia in 2 roles in the Institute of Government for a number of years, and also took a career sidetrack for 5 years as a patrol officer with the University of Georgia Police Department.
Wow. So, I think about not only the span of the work you just described, but also how different in so many ways Athens must look than how it looked when you first arrived here. I know you work in helping guide and steward that development now. But just, off the top of your head, what are some of the biggest differences between the Athens that we're living in now and the Athens you moved to?
Well, when I first came to Athens, downtown was still a quiet, sleepy place, closed up at night,
Mm,
and it still had a somewhat agricultural feel to it, if you can believe
mm,
that. The warehouses, where the Classic Center is now, that primarily served an agricultural cotton purpose. The bat factory was still upright, and you could even buy a lawnmower on the sidewalk downtown, along with grass seed and other agricultural stuff. There was a lot of dying out, dusty five and dimes like McClellan's and McCrory's and places like that. There was still a department store downtown. Um, but all those were beginning to transition out, and there was a lot of boarded up property. We all look back in time through the filter of our own nostalgia. And of course, I was young,
mhm.
so everything seems better then. But downtown seemed to be an undiscovered place for a university student. It wasn't, believe it or not, the primary focus of University of Georgia students' social lives.
Wow.
And it was almost like this was a special place that we had. Only people in the know knew about all these interesting places downtown. And for some reason, it seemed much bigger then because we were still discovering all these back streets and things like that. But it was a lot different. I think one of the biggest impacts on downtown in those days was the proximity of the University of Georgia's art school on Jackson Street. Brought a lot of interesting, creative people in close proximity to downtown, this changing downtown. And I think you saw um, the shops and activities of downtown reflected of a more quirky population, a smaller, quirky population.
Yeah. Uh, so with each job, not only was time passing, but so was the way you were engaging with our community. So, if you kind of walk us through from that arriving here as a college student to now, how has your understanding of Athens, Georgia changed with the work that you were doing?
Sure. Um, I guess when I first came to the university, like most 18-year-olds, um, the biggest priority in my life was myself.
Mhm.
So the only part of downtown that was interesting to me was the parts that I like to go to.
Mhm.
My favorite music venue, my favorite hamburger joint, that type of thing, and everything else wasn't part of my world. And as you get more invested in a community, you meet people that you normally wouldn't socialize with or normally wouldn't interact with, and you realize that they have a story to tell too, which is important to the community. And as you grow into a career of public service, you realize that the world is much larger than yourself, and those all contribute to the community that we have.
Yeah. David, I don't know if I think I was almost 30 when I realized that public service was the route that I was sure I wanted to take. I dabbled here and there before then. You have served in the public sector in a variety of forms uh, for decades now. So it's an interesting juxtaposition because you're saying I arrived here as an 18-year-old selfish person that wanted hamburgers and music for me, but it seems like you got on the public service track a lot quicker than some others. What compelled you about that public service mission? What pulled you in?
Well, I can point to a University of Georgia political science class I had that educated me on the value of local government, which has always been my passion.
Mhm.
I could probably point to a background of school teachers and people like that that raised me and instilled a belief system that uh, the government and schools are here to serve people and to
Mhm.
hopefully do good.
And then, one last thing, because I find it so fascinating. So, uh, I know lots of people that had a stray 5-year career in something that they don't do anymore. I mean, I had a stray career into retail. I know people that maybe went into education for a while or went into corporate for a while. In your case, you spent 5 years as a patrol officer. How did being such a street level bureaucrat, being actually out there as patrol, how did that shape your understanding of Athens?
A great deal. And again, interacting people at not their best moments. Um, the part I loved about being a police officer was the problem solving component of it. It was intellectually challenging in the sense where you had to assess a situation, balance their constitutional rights with the laws of Georgia, with your own departmental policy, and you weren't given a committee or a day or two to figure all that out. You had to do it on the side of their car in about 15 minutes.
Wow.
And so that was the challenging part for me. It's still about helping people. I think 99% of all my encounters with people were either positive or not indicative of that person as a whole. They were just having a really bad day.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed that part. Um, it was very exciting. There's a comradeship of police officers that, for the most part, is positive and helps you get through a challenging career. And meeting people that needed assistance, I thought that was still in the theme of a public service career. And it did some good for me individually. It honed in some work ethic that I still incorporate. So it was a very positive experience.
Yeah. It almost seems like you're not going to be satisfied until you've held every single job in Athens.
I like that Johnny Cash song about how he built a career, a Cadillac out of about 30 different years of parts.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah. Well, you can look, I love doing my job, but you just let me know when it's your turn and you can come run Historic Athens too.
No, you got it. You done great.
So let's talk about the work that you're currently engaged in. You've been engaged in it for some time now, and it once again, it's really interesting to me, and I know I've heard other people say it's interesting too, that to have someone at ADDA, at the Athens Downtown Development Authority, who has grappled with Athens for so long and at so many levels. Maybe we should just start with what Athens Downtown Development Authority is. So can you talk about the organization itself?
Sure. The Downtown Development Authority is one of Georgia's oldest downtown development authorities. Most downtowns, large and small, have some version of a downtown development authority. In Athens, it was created by act of the General Assembly in 1977. It was a period when Athens and cities all over the country were struggling with the decentralization of population, of their economies, and specific to Athens, the retail sector was exiting downtown to go to the mall or other regional shopping centers. And so the Downtown Development Authority was created by very insightful people in those days to help bring some of that, or hold some of that economic vitality downtown. And it's more than just economic vitality, it's social cohesiveness as well. I think most people retain their civic identity from some component of downtown. It's been said by better people than me. The mayor of Durham once said that a downtown defines a community like your living room defines a home. And the mayor of Columbus once said that dying downtown will spread through your community like a cancer. And it's true. You think of downtowns that have a lot of fine people in it. If they don't have a downtown that's relevant to people's lives or to the economy, that may be your filter into that downtown.
Right.
So what Downtown Development Authority does, we have a wide variety of responsibilities, but primarily we're an economic development agency that attempts to preserve the economic vitality for downtown and to reach out to increase it as well. We're not a separate city council for the downtown area. We're not a business organization, although we provide some of the functions that are more relevant to those organizations. For example, we may do some work with Athens Clarke County to prepare for a new streetscape project, or we may be the liaison between a business owner and a specific department with Athens Clarke County to solve some problem. But we're not a second government for downtown. We're not a business organization, but we do try to increase the vitality of downtown through straight economic development, through beautification techniques, through hosting and creating social events for downtown. We also manage all the street parking and 2 parking decks.
That's a lot.
So that's what we do in a nutshell. I was hired in 2017 as co-director. Downtown Development Authority works on a co-directorship. Myself and Linda Ford both serve as directors of the Downtown Development Authority. And since we're such a small and lean and mean organization, we do have specific job descriptions, but we pretty much get into each other's business and do whatever's best for downtown.
You know, David, I'm curious what made you apply for this job, because you're clearly someone who isn't afraid to switch gears in your career. You're someone who has a great pull on public service. What was it about this role that that enticed you to apply?
Well, I was very happy as a police officer, and even though I came to that career late in my life, I felt like I had discovered myself career-wise, and this was going to be my job path towards retirement. The Downtown Development Authority job came up, and it seemed like a dream job for me. It's something downtown Athens is something I'm passionate about. It doesn't even feel like work sometimes. I really enjoy doing it, and it did have the ancillary benefits of 8 to 5 type environment, not missing Christmas Eve and Christmases and people's birthdays. Right. So that was more conducive to my middle-aged self than perhaps being a police officer. But Absolutely. It was mostly because I love downtown. I enjoy being downtown in any role that I've been in, and it never gets tiring to me. And that's just something where I want to spend the rest of my time with.
You know, when you were speaking about the ADDA's role to downtown Athens and why downtowns are important, I was reminded, actually, I'm going to rudely reach off screen here, but when people ask me these days, if they're finding out about historic preservation for the first time and they're trying to demystify it for themselves, where they should start, I've been a lot of times recommending this book here, which is it's called Why Old Places Matter by Thompson Mays, and I believe he was the legal counsel for the National Trust. But in any case, one of the things it talks about a lot in this book that I'm sure relates to your job is one of the reasons why old places matter is that they give communities a sense of continuity, that you get a sense that the community didn't start yesterday, that you're carrying on a tradition. And, you also are balancing stewarding that tradition with celebrating new building, because every building you're celebrating, at some point, someone had to build. So you're having to balance new growth with protecting some core critical mass that keeps downtown Athens. And so, when you report to work each day, how are you wrapping your mind around those two twin challenges for our community?
Well, I guess what I think, downtown, although it's a collection of shops and various places for people to purchase things, it's not a shopping mall.
Right.
Downtown is, very different from a straight business center in the middle of a parking lot. It's a place not only for economic intersection, but social intersections as
Mm,
well.
sure.
It's where people go to church. It's where people go to vote. It's people, go to city hall to do uh, business with the government. It's all those things together, and we try to blend those different needs into our activities as well.
Sure. Now,
So we can
yeah,
see it that way. That I'm not managing a shopping mall.
right.
I'm working for the betterment of the downtown.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that, I think about when my wife and I first started dating. She's from Grayson, and we used to pop out to the avenues out there a little bit
Mhm.
out in Snellville. And you see those types of developments around the state, the avenues approach, where it's a series of shopping. It's kind of like an outdoor mall, and they can be fun. I mean, or there can be neat shops there or whatnot. But there is something about the sense of place of a downtown where that you're sitting in a place where other people have sat, or as you're saying, it's not just a shopping mall. It's a place where people worship, vote, interact. You meet people from walks of life you wouldn't have met otherwise. Um, you know, your job, my job every day is to think about the history of Athens. Your job every day is to think about downtown Athens. If you had to distill what makes downtown Athens different than, let's say, an avenues or a mall or something like that, you had to distill what makes downtown Athens downtown Athens. What's at the heart of that character of downtown Athens?
I think it's a collection of people that continues to go downtown. I think it's people with different motivations and different desires
Mm.
that still can intersect downtown. And I think more to your point, when I'm on College Square and I see photographs of historic College Square, a time traveler from 1890 could still come to Athens and still recognize uh, where he was.
Right,
And I think that's a huge difference between Athens and other downtowns.
right,
That this is unique to Athens. This is unique to other cities. That I'm walking in the footsteps of historic people. I'm walking in the footsteps of everyday people like myself that just happened to live 150 years ago
yeah,
and can see the same community through their eyes. Now, that time traveler is not going to understand or recognize some of
right,
the uses in those businesses or some of the people, but I still think there is a connection amongst Athenians across generations and centuries that could still say, here's downtown. This is the University of Georgia. Here's City Hall. These are other relevant places to
yeah,
downtown. And as Athenians, we share, the same experiences with those people because we interact downtown.
absolutely. You know, at some point, I need to share what I'm about to describe on our general Facebook page. But I think it was a few months ago, David, I sent you the link that one of our members had sent us to an old student film, I think from the late 70s or early 80s.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, of the young man in a mime costume running around downtown Athens,
right,
starting in College Square, and finishing back where the rear entrance to the new Tweed Studios is. Uh,
right.
and what you described about time travel, that was the closest thing I've ever felt to it, because I've been in Athens since I was 5 years old. And although the businesses have changed, like I can't go to the arcade at the back of the downtown Pepinos anymore, although the businesses have changed, the storefronts still are the same. The sense of scale largely is the sense the same. And so to watch someone run by spaces 30, 40 years ago, but to have it still look like downtown was so surreal. Do you know,
Right.
is that unique amongst Georgia or American downtowns that we've retained so much of the look of our downtown? Because except for the storefront names on most of the places he was running by, uh, there was a few changes here or there, but the globe was still there. It was just selling thick pizza. A lot of the businesses were the same. Is that unique for a downtown to retain that kind of continuity?
Well, I think it is for certain types of downtown. There used to be an expression in Charleston. I guess it's still an expression in Charleston. where they were too poor to paint and too proud to whitewash.
Mm,
And what happened was that because of economic circumstances, they were forced to retain their buildings.
mhm.
A lot of the boom towns like Atlanta and the Charlottes and places like that, Dallas, their downtowns are unrecognizable,
Right.
most because of extreme economic growth during a compact period of time. Where downtown Athens, although we've always had a fairly good economy for downtown because of our relationship with the University of Georgia,
Yeah.
it's been more slow and steady. And I think as a component of that is, um, we've been able to retain a lot of the at least building infrastructure that we've had for a long time.
I see that we have viewers coming into the discussion here. If you're just tuning in, we're talking to David Lynn from the Athens Downtown Development Authority. If you'd like to participate in this discussion, please share a comment, a thought, anything you'd like below the video, and we can share it on screen. David, I want to tilt towards the time we're living in here. So your job is to work with so many of the incredible businesses, business owners, entrepreneurs that define our downtown community. All of those entrepreneurs find themselves in, I mean, the word of the last few months has been uncertain. I mean, there's so much uncertainty right now, difficulty and challenges. How has that changed the nature of your work, working with those folks?
Dramatically. Yeah, I think, Athens, well, most of the country of the world, whenever it's been confronted with external threats or challenges, even as challenging as those threats can be, we've typically been able to at least band together and form a strategy or to take comfort from each other. And, even though things might not turn out as well as we wanted, at least we had the comfort of a shared experience. And I
Right.
think that's the cruelty of these times is that we have to do this as individual Robinson Crusoes,
Yeah.
castaways on our own island. And if downtown is anything, it's a collection of a lot of different types of people, but working together to offer, a great downtown. And that's been the difficult part is the quietness, the solitude, which may be great for a vacation, but it's not good for, your downtown. And that's been the most challenging part. We have stayed busy here at the Downtown Development Authority, Linda and I and our staff, on reaching out to businesses. We provided some grants. We've provided a lot of information and expertise on how to get larger grants to keep folks alive,
Yeah.
economically speaking, until we can see a way out of this.
You know, uh, y'all responded extremely quickly. I remember seeing information going out. It felt almost immediately, information on grants, information on just clarity on public rules. What was your strategy on recalibrating when this really became real to folks?
Well, Linda and I have always tried to keep a close relationship with our businesses, and we mean a door-to-door, face-to-face relationship with most of our business owners and property owners downtown. And we didn't have the solutions when we first started hearing about this, but we once things were beginning to shut down, we knew people needed assistance immediately. And although it was relatively small what we could offer, we hoped that we could bridge them until a larger, economic development package was created by the federal government. And we were thinking about let's bridge to Friday, let's bridge to the next week, let's find a way to make it to August.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's been uh, largely our strategy is not trying to incorporate all the issues and problems that are confronted to a business owner. What they needed was cash and they needed it quickly and they needed it with few strings attached.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as the Downtown Development Authority is since we're so specifically focused on downtown, we had the luxury of doing that.
Are there any success stories you've already had that come to mind? Any I know we're all trying to get, as you said, just to the next Friday, but I know it's also important to celebrate the wins as they come. Have you had any moments of success or positivity since this started?
Well, certainly, individually, the response we've gotten from business folks has been great. They've acknowledged the work that we've done, and even in times of immense economic suffering for them, that we still feel like we're all on the team and that we're doing this together. I know that a lot of our businesses have adapted in exceedingly creative ways to make sure that their customers are still served, that their
Mhm.
employees have something to do and income. Um, so I always, for some reason, this sticks out in my mind. I know you're familiar with the restaurant Clocked,
Of
but
course.
the creative way that they added a service window through the opening of one of their through an opening of a window is I hope something they keep after this is all over.
Right.
I know that BJ Hardy over at Doggone Barbecue, uh, he has used. I want to phrase my words carefully because I don't want you to think he's taking advantage of the times, but he's been able to position himself through his takeout business where he's getting even more customers than he was before.
Wow.
You know, barbecue works well with takeout, and he's been able to adjust his typical business model to a new reality.
Right.
And so we have a lot of different stories like that. Unfortunately, they're not enough to sustain us for too much longer. We need to find a cure for this pandemic and get folks confident in coming downtown again, and just being able to interact with each other.
Yeah. The last note you struck is one of urgency, and that's hard when there's so little we know about what the timeline on this is. Uh, I want to talk about your personal urgency for a moment. So, each of the leaders we talk to on this program have grappled with this in different ways. I've given the example in the past, by the way, that I'm I'm running more and at a level that I haven't really touched since high school. I mean, this has just been that has been my coping mechanism. I know from how many people I have to dodge to stay 6 feet away from that a lot of people are using running right now as a coping mechanism. For you, this is a lot of pressure. You are the master gardener. You're one of two master gardeners for our downtown, right? Keeping our downtown in order. How have you grappled with that sense of pressure and urgency?
Well, I guess a lot of it is that the nice thing or the great thing about being in Athens is there is truly a sense that we're all in this together,
Hmm.
that not one of us is going to solve this. Um, and there is an attitude. Not only will we survive, but a lot of it is just we just have to endure this. I mean,
Yeah.
we've endured worse. Um, who knows what we as a community are going to look like at the other side of this? Um, but we will endure. We will prevail. And I think that's where I take comfort. And we're not in this alone. This
Right.
isn't something specific to Athens, Georgia. Um, this is a challenge that's confronting the entire world.
Right.
And our little postage stamp of the world, you just have to get perspective on that. Um, we're not as bad off as other communities, even in this state. Um, although Athens has never confronted a challenge um, uh, in recent times where we couldn't even imagine an Athens without University of Georgia students,
Yeah.
and we're being confronted with that. We've always bragged that we're immune to recessions because we always have that University of Georgia student, and that's been shocking to
Right.
people, myself included. Uh, you know, this spring was a beautiful spring, a far more spring-like for North Georgia, appropriate spring-like atmosphere for Georgia than I've seen in a long time. and this should be our busiest time of the year outside of college football with
Right.
graduations and weddings, and it was eerily quiet. I've never experienced such quietness living almost downtown than I have this spring. And I guess that's sort of the frightening part of it is this external beauty mixed with this, eerie quiet.
Yeah.
But we will endure this crisis and we'll emerge in some way stronger than we were before, and we'll be able to at least those who experienced it have a greater appreciation for the good times.
Hmm. You talked about innovation that we're seeing in downtown Athens. I mean, throughout the community for sure. Whether you're talking about the clock pickup window, whether you're talking about dog on barbecue, so many restaurants have converted to curbside if they were able to offer it. Cine is offering online screenings. I mean, you see all this kind of innovation, and as you mentioned, some of it might stick around if we're fortunate enough to still have these businesses when this is over. What type of innovation have you implemented in your own office? Because you're someone that, I mean, if I manage to drive through downtown Athens and not see you, I'm usually shocked. And so I know you're someone that's out knocking on doors. You haven't been able to do that anymore. So
Yeah,
say what?
you have to strike a balance. I don't want to appear to be like that mayor in the Jaws movie, pleading for people to get back in the
Right.
water when there was a monster out there.
Right.
So, and we have to take cues from our leadership, our community leadership. They ask us to stay at home, and that that doesn't blend with the typical, knock on doors, pat people on the back kind of
Right.
atmosphere that we like to promote here in downtown Athens. That's been, like I said before, the biggest cruelty of the whole thing is that we
Right.
can't take comfort in at least each other's, physical encouragement. So yes, it's been very difficult to, stay at home. We do come into the office, but we stay here in the office. Um, it, it's been very challenging, and I think the way we've gotten through it is, how are we going to pull downtown out of this once this pandemic is clear?
Absolutely. I see Commissioner Ovita Thornton just commented, and so I want to bring that on screen real quick. So hi to Commissioner Thornton. Thanks for tuning in. We look forward to having Ovita Thornton on the program in a few weeks. But Ovita just said, good job. So David, earlier in the program, you emphasized that the Athens Downtown Development Authority, it's not a smaller commission. It's not a different elected body. It's a different type of organization, but it does require close collaboration with the Marin Commission. You have a history with that body yourself personally. How has the ADDA partnered with the Marin Commission throughout this experience to try to help your mission?
Oh, I think that's a great question, and um, you know, downtown is a part of Athens, and Clark County is a big contributor to what downtown is. I think specifically to this time period, we've worked with Athens Clark County, and they with us to accelerate some construction projects, some public construction projects, specifically on Clayton Street during this economic downtime. The last thing we want to do is finally get on the other side of this pandemic, and all of a sudden we're ripping up streets to rebuild Clayton Street just as businesses are starting to recover. So Athens Clark County has been very motivated to get as much work done as they possibly could and still ensure the safety of their own employees. And we've been trying to assist them along the way through contact with business folks, and as well as providing crews some food sometimes.
That's great. So I'm gonna, if you'll allow me to, David, just one quick moment.
Yeah.
I need to make sure we thank our sponsors here. So just one quick moment. We still have a quarter of the program to go. So if you're watching right now, please don't tune away. But just very briefly, the folks you see on screen are our annual sponsors. These are the folks that throughout the year help us keep our lights on, our team employed. we're a 52-year-old nonprofit, but those bills still arrive promptly every month. And so we do appreciate the support from the fine folks you see here. If you're interested in becoming a sponsor or finding out more about sponsorship, you can visit historicathens.com or send us a direct message through this Facebook page. We're also fortunate that we have a lot of regular members, just everyday people. Membership starts at only $5 a month. There's a lot of benefits of it, but you do help continue this long organization in our work to celebrate and conserve community heritage here in Athens. So if you're interested in finding out more about that, please consider visiting historicathens.com and becoming a member today. I want to emphasize that we're thrilled to talk to David today. I doubt you can read the font this small, but this is the list of all 55 folks that we are going to be interviewing on the program. And so we really appreciate, you can see, for example, Commissioner Thornton, who was commenting a moment ago, will be on June 11th. But these are the fine folks that are speaking to us. And then below there, you can see the logos and names of the weekly sponsors that have helped us prepare for 11 weeks of this program. The Athens Downtown Development Authority is one of those. They're coming up in the coming weeks. This week was made possible by the Athens Area Chamber of Commerce, and we really appreciate that support. One last thing I'd like to show everyone is this. The most recent comment in the comment section came from Michelle Wynn. We're going to address that on air in a second. Michelle is currently the interim director at the Athens Welcome Center, and we're thrilled to have her there. They have recently started their own live casts that start each weekday at 2 p.m. Ours here start at 1, so you can tune in right after this ends. You can see it's a mixture of live broadcasts from some of the historic sites in Athens that are recognized by the National Park Service on the National Register of Historic Places, and then also virtual workshops from the Church Waddle Brumby House, from the Athens Welcome Center itself. So feel free to tune into those Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. We'd love to have you join us there. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that from screen here and get back to our discussion with David. So David, one thing I do want to ask, just specifically with COVID, let me just get all of my ducks back in a row here. So you mentioned the urgency, and that's something I really want to make sure we lock in here. So you said we've seen a lot of innovation, but not necessarily enough that can sustain us indefinitely. Sooner or later, we need to be able to get customers back through these doors. Can you speak a little bit to that timeline? Not the timeline of reopening. That's not something I expect you to have per se, but how do you think, what do you think the next few weeks look like? And what would you say to any viewer that's hoping to support downtown businesses right now?
Well, I think that at least specific to downtown, I can't speak for the entire community, but specific to downtown, we'll reopen when the University of Georgia decides it's safe to send students back to in-class instruction. And of course, what they've said to us is they're going to have a fall semester. And economically speaking, that's when downtown will emerge again. Obviously, we have to keep people safe and encourage people to stay safe. And you have to balance my urgency to maintain economic vitality for downtown with other voices that urge for more caution and social distancing.
Yeah.
And I think it's a collection of voices that are going to inform the public when it's best for them to come back downtown. Does a family come back to watch a large event in August? I'm not sure about that. But as far as, are we serving coffee again? Are we seeing movies at Cine again? I think that will all start gradually. And we have to pay attention to voices that say this pandemic may be returning. We have to close back down again. Hopefully not. And hopefully a vaccine will be created so we all have the confidence to engage in our public forum like we did before. Um, so, I think it's a collection of voices that people are going to have to interpret. Um, business boosters, economic boosters, chamber of commerce types are going to encourage people to get in the water.
Yeah.
But, you know, I have a family too, and we don't want to endanger anyone's family if we don't feel like it's safe.
Absolutely.
So I think we still have to continue to listen to folks that know best about these types of issues throughout the summer. And we're hoping that we're seeing the downward slope of this pandemic for now, and hopefully that means that we can safely emerge back into the public forum, and a vaccine will be here sooner rather than later.
Well, let's hope. So I want to address Michelle's question, and then we'll get to the 3 questions that we close out this program with each day. So, David, you've been walking the streets of our downtown. The top of our program, for those of you that have been with us the full hour, you talked about it when there was still a manufacturing component to downtown, when there was still an agricultural field downtown. You've been watching downtown carefully for 30 years. It's your job, I'm sure, to daydream all the time about what the future of downtown Athens looks like. This current moment probably makes it hard, makes that vision a little hazy. I'm thinking of the Magic 8 Ball where it says what isn't one of them like outcome unclear or something like that, But right now, what do you think of downtown Athens in 20 years? What do you think Athens looks like, downtown Athens in 20 years?
Busier. I think it'll be more of downtown. I think we can all take assurance, especially from historic Athens point of view, that time traveler is still going to come to College Square in 50 years and still recognize that it's downtown Athens. I think what forward-thinking individuals have done is preserve our principal shopping district, Clayton Street, College Square, and that's going to architecturally, at least, look exactly like it does now, if not better. There are some gaps in even our historic core that could use some activity in it. For example, the old Graham Hotel over Wuck Street that needs to have some economic life return to it under the same architectural facade. To speak more to Michelle's question, how I think it'll look, I think downtown is going to change the most dramatically on its northern edge, out College Square, with Athens Clarke County and the Housing Authority taking control, is not the right word, of Bethel Homes and creating a new day for the residents there. I think they're also going to create a new day for downtown of quality housing for the residents that live there and increase residential opportunities for workforce housing and for opportunities for people that have the economic advantage to live in an upscale residential unit downtown. So I think downtown is going to look a lot different on the northern edge. I think in 20 years, all our surface parking lots will be developed into some new use. I think you're starting to see that now, where development that's going to house Target downtown is on a surface parking lot. I think land values and property are becoming so valuable that people will want to developmentally at least exploit every nook and cranny downtown and make it denser, fuller, and wider. So I think our downtown footprint is going to expand and probably go up a little bit, but we have a good opportunity of preserving what we've always had.
Thank you for that answer. Earlier in the program, you talked about, how big downtown used to feel to you. And, now for those of us that walk it all the time, it gets that much smaller. But I was just thinking, as you were talking about the end of the surface parking lots, about how when I'm walking across downtown, I still forget that I can't cut through behind the Georgia Theater through the old, the parking lot that probably hasn't existed in 15 years that had that Bank of America ATM in it. It is amazing how things change. So, David, I want to be sensitive to your time, and of course, we have another program coming up soon. But I do want to get to these last three questions. So the first question, we'll hit it quick. If quarantine was over tomorrow, every business was open, it was safe to go out again. First of all, I would assume that I would run into you at lunchtime or at Little Italy or something like that. But what are some of the spots you'd be hitting first? What are some of the places you miss?
Well, probably the first thing I'd be having my Julie Andrews arms wide open, swinging around College Square. The downtown is alive. The hills are alive moment. But after that, I think we all miss our routines. I miss going into Walker's every morning for coffee or Jittery Joe's and talking to people on College Square and, hanging out at the corner of College and Washington and talking to a commissioner or two. I would, have a pizza slice at Little Italy and talk to Frank over there and get razzed by him. And then, I'd love to have lunch again on the top of the Georgia Theater and, take my wife to happy hour at the National and have a nice dinner. And ended up with a show at Cine or watching a band at the 40 Watt Club. I'm not unique. I think most people want to interact with, people they know and new people that they don't know downtown and bring back those kinds of encounters.
Well, good. Well, this program accomplishes a lot of different things, but we're thrilled to pioneer a new one today, which is you formally seem to have asked your wife on a date. So I see that Stephanie Lynn just chimed in to say that a dinner at the National. So Stephanie, I think you can take this as a firm verbal contract from David.
All right.
So thanks for tuning in, Stephanie. David, our two last questions here. One is, you mentioned recession. You mentioned the effects of recession, the way Athens has responded in the past. In the historic preservation world, which is a component of what we do, one of the concerns is when you come out of a recession, sometimes previously safe historic properties can quickly become endangered, in the name of putting something new out there. One of the questions we've been asking is, what are the places that you hope we continue to preserve? So if somebody's watching this interview at the UGA library 50 years from now, let's say they're 18, they're selfish. All they care about is their burger joint and music venue, like you mentioned earlier. But what are some of the historic places in Athens that you hope when they leave the library that day, they can still go out and visit? What are some of your favorite historic spots?
Some of my favorite historic spots, as far as buildings are concerned, certainly the Costa building. I hope in the next 20 years, that's an actively utilized building that the public or private sector will be interacting with. I hope that's preserved and taken to its next chapter as a fully functioning part of downtown life. I mentioned the old Graham Hotel. I'm hoping that stays preserved and looks the way it is, but it has businesses in it or hotel in it or something of that nature. Some of the other areas I enjoy going to, I have this fascination with some of the alleys downtown. I hope that we can have a program that brings life to those alleys through public art and some other changes like that. I love the public space, the patio in front of Ted's Pizza. It's always been one of my most favorite public spaces in town. So things like that. Certainly Creature Comforts and Cine, what they've done with those parts. I hope those are all fully functioning components of our downtown like they are now.
Thank you. All of those are excellent. The Costa building is one that I've been obsessed with well before I knew what historic preservation was. It's just such a fascinating building. All right. So our last question, David, if somebody were to watch this 100 years from now, this interview, what would you want them to know about Athens in this moment?
I think I would say to that person, um, Athenians meet challenges best when they can do it together. And although on the surface we've been isolated and apart from each other, I think that we all retain a specific civic identity through these times,
Mhm.
through the innovative ways that businesses have remained open, to the innovative ways of people stuck in their houses have amused themselves and have broadcast that amusements to others. There's been some laugh out loud moments. I'm sure you've all seen on various Facebook posts of how people are keeping their children and teenagers entertained in these times. And I think I would tell that person that we hope that as Athenians of long ago, that we have made you proud on how we've interacted with this challenge, and that we hope you can meet the next challenge as well as we have in the 2020s.
Thank you for sharing those words, David. To everyone who tuned in today, we just want to thank you. We'll be back tomorrow at 1 p.m. With Reverend Hart from First AME Church. So we look forward to having that discussion. If you'd like to revisit any of the past interviews, please feel free to do so at our video section of our page. And once again, thanks to the Athens Area Chamber of Commerce for making this week possible. David and I are going to log off here. If you're interested in more historic programming, head over to the Athens Welcome Center Facebook page. David, thanks again for making time to talk to us today.
Thank you, Tommy. I appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. Everyone out there, take care. See you tomorrow at 1 o'clock.